Buenas noches, soy el demonio azul y bienvenido a las 5:00 en ninguna parte. Mi buen amigo Mark David Welsh está en su camino al coffin en la cuna para esta tarde. Entonces, como un invitado especial de esta semana, voy a empezar el show con el primero bebida que es Black Gold, Cairngorm. Bueno. Bugger. Yes, it's me. I bet you were fooled, weren't you? It's getting bloody hot under there, you know. Oh dear. Don't know how the guy used to wrestle that way, because that's a mask of Mexican wrestler the Blue Demon, who you may remember from such films as Blue Demon, Destructor of Spies, Santo versus Blue Demon in Atlantis, Santo and Blue Demon versus Dracula and the Wolfman, Blue Demon versus the Infernal Brains. There were many classics. And I thought I'd wear that and show off my Spanish, but as I say, it's bloody hot under there. I don't know how the guy used to wrestle that way. Oh dear. Let's put him over here for now. Yes. Right, so welcome to It's 5 o'clock somewhere. It's a Friday night. Here we are again in the coffin and cradle. I just said all that in Spanish. Wow, why would I say it again? I'll tell you what, anyone who was actually a native Spanish speaker would have been probably laughing their arse off at that, because I don't speak Spanish. I learnt all that off Google Translate phonetically, and it's probably quite bad. So let's open proceedings with the Cairngorm Black Gold. Let's get down to the drinks. After that little bit of silliness at the start. And the Cairngorm Brewery, of course, if you've seen a show, the Nessie edition actually, a couple of weeks ago, you'll know they're based in Aviemore, which is very close to Loch Ness. And in fact, they've taken over doing the Loch Ness brand, or the Loch Ness Brewery, I think about 2005, 2006, I think it was. And one of their beers, the Dark Ness, actually was my favourite one of that session. But this is actually brewed under their own name of the Cairngorm Brewery. And this is their Black Gold, which is 4.4 traditional Scottish milk stout. And we're giving that a go to start this week's programme. For which I have quite high hopes actually. And this was one of my hopes, which is rapidly fading. Because it's a bit rough. For me, doesn't taste much like a milk stout. Not really getting that impression. It's okay. It's not very smooth. There's not a lot of flavour to it for me. Hang on, let's look at the tasting notes. Which are down here somewhere, out of camera shot, of course, must be professional. Yes, I just said all that. God dear. That's the script, you see. It's a multi-award winning stout. Okay. With a smooth sweetness and a dry finish. Satisfying aftertaste. You've struck black gold and you won't be disappointed with this rich and smooth liquid. Yeah. Okay. Well, as I was saying, before I was slightly derailed by that one, was the fact that I'm quite hopeful for this week of finding the magnificent 7+1. Because if you've watched this show regularly, you'll know that I pick the ones I think are the most outstanding and exceptional ones and put them into a notional next round where I'm going to try they're all going to face off against each other, and I'm going to try and find my favourite bottle or canned stout of 2020. And I was hopeful of getting the 8th one through, because the last few weeks, it's been ages since I had the 7th and last one that's actually gone forward. It's been, I think it must be over a month since I actually had a really outstanding one. And that's been a really big disappointment for me, as I've probably said far too often. But I'm quite confident, I'm hopeful this week, and one of the reasons I was hopeful was the Black Gold, because it is the same brewery who's brewed the Dark Ness from the Loch Ness Brewery, as I just mentioned, and I was hopeful that this could be one of the outstanding ones, and it's not going to be that. As I say, it's improving the more I have of it, but it's certainly not going to be one of the outstanding ones. So that's number 1, so we better move on to number 2. Well, let me tell you, of the others I've got here, one has a hugely wonderful description, which makes me very hopeful. One is from a brewery who've already had one of the beers go through to the outstanding stage, and the other one's a complete loose cannon, which sounds incredibly odd. And that's going to be fun. I'm really not sure what on earth I'm going to make of that one. But first, before we get to that, we're going to move on to the second one of the session, and this is the one with the fantastic description. Now, I've never had anything from this brewery before. They're called the Saltaire Brewery. Let's have a quick look at the notes on this. They're based in Shipley, which is North Yorkshire, and about 3.5 miles north of Bradford. North Yorkshire, West Yorkshire. God, they'd kill me if I was out there and I said that. Oh dear. Anyway, yes, they're basically, it says it's internationally acclaimed. It says it's a Moorish dark beer with rich chocolate decadence. That's what we want, a bit of decadence. It's clean and rich with a massive hit of chocolate sweetness. Smell, chocolate. A lot of chocolate, I think. Obviously, because it's called Triple Choc. That's the name of it. And in fact, actually, it's very good with the spicy chili con carne, apparently, which is kind of, sounds a little strange. But, yeah, this is it. It's a huge bottle, which I'm always a fan of, obviously. So I've got my hopes up a bit with this one. Oops. Throwing the bottle tops all over the place. Right. Ooh, that looks very nice. Very nice. And it's a pretty strong chocolate smell. Aroma. Sounds classier, doesn't it? Can't smell the beer element as much as the chocolate though. I mean, I've had, can't remember which one it was. A couple of weeks ago I had a chocolate one that was basically just like smelling a bar of chocolate. This one is not. And definitely get as much of the beer, the alcohol aroma as the chocolate. Well, let's give it a go. See, the taste is the important thing. Yeah, a lot of chocolate in this. Ooh, very lingering aftertaste indeed. I like that. This is actually quite a weak one. I think, let's have a quick look. It's only 4.8, but I would say it actually tastes stronger. It's certainly got a bit of body to it and a bit of punch. I'll probably have gone for more in the mid-5s if I'd been asked to evaluate the strength just based on the flavour. I like it. I'm not going to go any further than that yet, but I do like it. I could well imagine having a long session on this, because it's only 4.8. It's very drinkable indeed, and I could definitely see myself having a whole evening on this. Got to say, cautiously recommended so far, but we'll see how things pan out. One of the things they do mention in the notes about this one is that they've one of their exciting new developments is they've got a state-of-the-art packaging plant with a capacity, it says, to shift up to 100,000 bottles a week, which is pretty impressive. They must be having a roaring trade. Well, it says a capacity. They probably don't do that many every week, do they? If they did, oh my God, it'd make an absolute fortune, you'd think. But yeah, they talk about the fact that it's helped their whole business and all that. And one of the things I did notice, talking about packaging and stuff, was the label. And this occurred to me when I was looking at the bottles before the session, when obviously I was preparing. Is the fact that you look at that label there, and hopefully you can see that very well. It's no great work of art by any means. Certainly if you compare it with this one, the black gold, where I don't know if you can see that, but that's an oil rig lit up with some flames on against a red sky, and it's very nice, it's very classy, and much more artistically good than this. But if you're looking for a way to sell your beer, having something like this, which is really, really simple but distinctive, where you can actually read the name of the brewer and the beer from across the room, and you've got basically their whole range is exactly the same except with a different colour for each. That's distinctive, that's branding. I hate to use that kind of 21st century word, but that's really, to me, that's more effective than the artistically better one in terms of getting you recognition, brand recognition from just a drinker like myself, or from dealers and pub owners, etc., etc. Because you see that, or something in that shape and that design, you know immediately that's the Saltaire Brewery. And that's, I think, the genius of it. So I do think, although you might say that's a really simple design and nothing special artistically, which is not, I think that's a really good job they've done there. Oh, I digress a bit there, but yeah, that struck me when I was talking about it, or thinking about it before this session. Sorry, but yes. So that's just my 5 cents worth on that. So next we're going to move on to number 3. This is the loose cannon of the quartet, because this one I couldn't even find out any actual website or English notes about it, apart from what was included on some sites where people review beer. Brew Advocate was the one where I got most of the information about this, and it just sounds so strange when you look, and I'll read some of them out because it just sounds, I've no idea what this is going to taste like at all. The beer I'm talking about is this. It's the Zvet B, and that's ZWET _BE. Now I'm presuming that the BE stands for Belgium because that's where it's from. It's from the, let's have a look here, it's from the, oh here we go, the Brouwerij 3 Fonteinen. The 3 Fonteinen Brewery, I think that's easiest, isn't it? It's 20 minutes south of Anderlecht, which, if you don't know, is a municipality of Brussels. So it's a porter, and as I say, all I can find about it is some reviews, and this is what they say. The aroma-wise, or nose, to be technical, is a bit funky. Apparently it smells of fresh tennis balls, candy, and a sort of leaf mould, as well as an empty red wine barrel, espresso, a hint of medicinal ethanol, lemon and brandy. That's just the smell. That's several comments of several reviewers combined there. So I have no idea what it's going to smell like at all. Taste wise, it's got a dry tartness, a rich chocolate malt quality, a funky barrel character, and something that reminds me of the Ovaltine my grandma used to give me. As well as notes of sesame oil, cherry, coffee, funky yeast flavours, and my favourite, sour puckeriness. And no, I don't know what that means. So this is quite intriguing, this one. I have no idea what it's going to taste like. Hopefully it's going to be really weird. I really hope so. It would be horrible if it was bland and uninteresting after that kind of build-up, wouldn't it? Oh, God. Oh dear. See why I'm never any good at cricket, can't you? Right. This is the Svet B. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. I don't really know. It's only a tiny bottle. It's 7% by the way, so it's one of the mid-range beers. I'm just intrigued to get the a bit of the nose, so to speak, and see what I make of it after that bizarre, almost contradictory sets of descriptions. It's a bit like smelling gas. That's not much of a recommendation, is it? Well, it's not a very appealing smell. I'm not really getting fresh tennis balls, but then I don't really make a point of using fresh tennis balls for anything, so I don't really know what they smell like. As for the rest of it, it just smells like beer. Right, let's give it a go and see what I think of it. It's pretty horrible. Yeah, I really don't like that. What did it say it tasted of? Well, it's certainly tart, I get that. The chocolate malt, not really. Ovaltine. When have I ever had Ovaltine? Didn't have it when I was growing up. Don't think I've ever had it. Sort of warm and milky, isn't it? Will this mean anything to anyone outside the UK, I wonder? Does anyone have Ovaltine outside the UK? Does anyone have Ovaltine in the UK anymore? Seems like something from out of the 1950s or earlier now. I don't know if it still exists even. I don't know why I'm talking about it. Right. Yeah. Not really getting any coffee. Maybe this is the puckeriness that I don't like, whatever that is. Let's try it again. Maybe I might have been a bit too unkind too quickly there. Who knows? Let's take my time over a little bit. Yeah, I think when I called it horrible at first taste, that was unfair. It improves the more you have of it, but it's still not a particularly pleasant flavour, not very appealing. It's not a strength issue. The strength doesn't overwhelm the flavour or anything like that, but it's just not a very pleasant flavour to me. Certainly I would put it above some of them I've had in this survey that I really haven't liked. I would say on reflection it's not as bad as those for me, but no, it's definitely not one I'd try again. Which is disappointing because I was so looking forward to this one because the descriptions were so weird. I didn't know anything about it other than that, and yeah, I was hoping that was going to be something intriguing and complex and really one that would win me over, but no. No. Right, okay, so we're through the first 3 of the evening. Time to talk about the t-shirt. This is from the Violent Femmes 1999 Viva Wisconsin tour. Now I have been to Wisconsin, but I wasn't there at the same time the Violent Femmes were, and I didn't go to any of the gigs on the tour. So why have I got the t-shirt? Well, because I saw them on their next tour, which was the year afterwards in Cambridge in England, a place called The Junction, and it was a brilliant evening. It really was. If you know anything about the Violent Femmes, you'll know they're slightly eccentric, shall we say. The evening finished. The encore. Brian Ritchie, the guitar player, I believe. Don't quote me on that. My memory's terrible. But in the last number, he was basically playing a full-size didgeridoo. Was holding it in his mouth with one hand, and the other hand he was using to play the theremin, which was sitting in his top hat. So it was a pretty wild night, but they were great. They are a very strange trio of individuals. They did an episode of I don't know if you remember that show, American comedy show Sabrina the Teenage Witch. They did an episode of that playing themselves, and I think the plot had one of Sabrina's aunts fell in love with the lead singer Gordon Gaynor, something like that. It was just a bizarre thing for them to do, but then they are a bizarre bunch of lads, so there you go. How I ended up with a t-shirt, and why I ended up with last year's t-shirt bought at the gig I saw, was that the only other alternative was to buy the current tour t-shirt, obviously, which was the Freak Magnet tour. Now I have a copy of that CD here, and there it is. I'll hold it up for you to the camera. That's what the t-shirt looked like. Hence I ended up with a t-shirt from the previous year's tour. So that's that little story. And so it's time to move on to our last beer of the evening. And this one I have got high hopes for, because it's from one of the brewers, or one of the breweries rather, who's managed to get one of their beers into the Magnificent Seven, those beers that are in the next stage of this survey. So I'm hopeful they're going to make it. Well, in fact, I've had 2 of their beers and one of them made it, so it'll be 2 out of 3 if they can do it. So I am quite hopeful about this. As well as that reason, there's a fact that on a previous session I had a beer by an American brewer called Tailgate, which was based on the same flavour idea and which was pretty close to going through as well. So, because I was really not expecting much from a peanut butter stout at all. The whole idea sounded disgusting, and it was great. So I'm really hopeful for the Garden Brewery's Imperial Chocolate and Peanut Butter Stout. Now, if you remember that particular show, or the show where I did their other beer, which I think was just called a stout, I think it was just a straight stout, these lot are from Croatia, and they have a number of beers in the Beers for Europe, or Beers of Europe website, by the way, that you can get. They don't just do stouts, and I'm tempted to try those actually as well, but obviously this survey is about stout. Perhaps if I ever do get through the number of stouts that are available, and I'm still sitting here in a couple of years' time on a Friday night, I'll get round to doing other types of beer, like fruit beers or ales or something. Who knows? Oh, by the way, before I try it, I did a little bit of research before this programme, the first time I think I've ever done this, because I was intrigued about this whole business of Imperial stouts. Because if you've seen last week's show, I mentioned that I didn't particularly like the style, and I'd said in last week's show that I didn't remember thinking that one was really all that great, but actually the Garden Brewery one was, but I'd forgotten about that. So there is one that I really liked. But yeah, I thought, what's all this Imperial Stout business about? It seems to be about something to do with Russia. So I had a quick look on the web about it, and yes, it's Russian Imperial Stout. Now, apparently, it was first brewed in the 18th century by Thrale's Anchor Brewery in London, specifically to export to the court of Queen Catherine II of Russia. So that's how it began, and in 1781 that brewery was taken over and it became known as Barclay Perkins Imperial Brown Stout. Brown. And it was shipped to Russia by a guy called Albert von Lecoq, who was awarded a Russian royal warrant which entitled him to use the name Imperial. So that's where it all began, and the recipe from 1856 shows it was probably over 10% back then, so it always was a brutally strong beer. And then other people around the world started brewing in that style. It mentions a brewery in Saskatchewan in Canada who started brewing it. In Denmark there was a Imperial Stout brewed in the 1930s, and in the United States as well. So that's how it all began, and the word Imperial, it says, is now commonly added to other beer styles to designate a really good strength. Imperial IPAs, Imperial Pilsners, etc. And it mentions that Baltic Porter is a version of Imperial Stout which originated in the Baltic regions in the 19th century. So that's where it all comes from. Queen Catherine II, basically. Was she a queen or was she an empress? Or was she a Tsarina? Or was that the daughter of the Tsar? I've read enough Russian literature, I should bloody know. Oh well. Anyway, away from Russia and back to Croatia. Let's try this Imperial Chocolate and Peanut Butter Stout. Oh, it's lively. Oh, by the way, did I mention it was 9%? So it is the brutal one of the evening, but not too brutal. In fact, I've got another one out the back in the stockroom from the Garden Brewery in Croatia, which is a hazelnut Imperial Stout, which I think is 9.2. I don't think I've ever had a hazelnut stout before, so that looks intriguing. But I wanted to try the peanut butter because of the surprisingly good experience I had with the tailgate one, which really, I really didn't expect to like that, because I don't like peanut butter. I thought it was disgusting when I was a child, and I've never touched it since. And I know your taste changes over the years. I mean, I never used to eat tomatoes, for example, but I do now, because I just thought they were gross when I was young. I don't know why. I thought they were gross, you know, so I didn't want to eat them. Someone probably told me they were good for me. That was probably what did it, because you know what kids are like, contrary about everything. So let's try this Garden Brewery Imperial Stout. Smells nice. Cheers. I hope you're having a good week, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're having fun. You can get the peanut butter. It's quite well balanced with the alcohol content. It's quite smooth. Lingers in the mouth quite nicely. Maybe too much alcohol flavour and not enough peanut butter. Wouldn't have thought I was going to say that. It's certainly not got the pronounced peanut butter, or I should call it just peanut flavourings, of the tailgate one. It's not as strong as that in that respect. It's going to take some more investigation. Yeah, that one's quite intriguing. That's going to be interesting. Ranking these is probably not actually going to be too difficult. In respect, it's basically 2 sets of 2. There are 2 ones that I like and 2 ones I'm not that keen on. So that's going to be fairly easy. I think in that respect, it's just how it's going to pan out within those 2 pairs. Oh, one thing that occurred this week, which I think I should have mentioned earlier probably, I'm surprised I didn't really, was the fact that my masks arrived finally, my face masks, coming from some other part of the world where I'd ordered them from. Was it Taiwan or something? I'm not sure where, but they came and they're very nice. Very, very sweet. They're washable and stuff, so I don't have a worry about that anymore. That's something I can take with me when I go outside eventually, which I haven't done yet, apart from to take the bins out for 140 days, I think it is now, something like that. I'm still sane, or as sane as I ever was. Anyway, here it is. Here's one of them. I'm not going to put it on because I'll have to wash it afterwards, wouldn't I? But there it is, and I still look ruggedly handsome even when I'm wearing it. And I'm sure there are probably 101 other uses for it after the pandemic's over. That's what I was trying to do. Oh, talking of the pandemic, I spent a couple of hours one day last weekend actually Googling to find out, because I was curious, about the conspiracy theories which we're back on again about the pandemic and why people think it's not real, apart from the fact that they don't know anyone who's died from it and they just don't trust anybody because the media just propagate propaganda and fake news all the time. And I perfectly understand that point of view, because I really do think a lot of media channels are not to be trusted, because I think they're bought and paid for by certain interests, shall we say. But yeah, so I was Googling it because I was curious as to what people's thoughts were on it. And it's a bit weird, isn't it? Because some people, as a conspiracy theory, seem to believe that it's all conspiracy theorists seem to believe it's something to do with a global agenda to create a new world order. But depending on who you look at or who you read, it's either left-wing libertarian nutters who want us all to believe in social justice and stuff, which doesn't sound too bad to me, but there you are, or it's right-wing fascists. And yet, depending on who you read, it's one or the other. And I'm sure some people think it's reptilian aliens as well. David Icke probably thinks that. Oh, he called all this earlier, didn't he? Years ago. Possibly. When he was reading out the football results. Or keeping goal for Hereford United. I digress. But yes, so there seems not a consistency of opinion really. It seems to be odd opinions from different people. Or different viewpoints. They don't seem to. It seems to all be filtered through their own personal beliefs and agendas to some extent, which I suppose shouldn't be too surprising. Although, as I say, I do understand the distrust in the modern media. I think that's perfectly understandable. Don't have a problem with that. But one of the things that strikes me about it is, if this is all a global conspiracy, and if all the world leaders are kind of in on it. I can only take the UK as an example because that's where I live and that's the country I've got the personal experience of and the knowledge of. If that's the case and everyone in charge knows about it and it's a put-up job, why do they look so hopeless and incompetent and completely clueless out of their depth? They wouldn't look like that if they knew what was going on. There might be an element of the double bluff where they're trying to look like, for authenticity purposes, they're trying to make it look like they're unsure about things, but they wouldn't want to look like complete idiots, would they? I mean, politicians have got egos the sizes of planets. You can't imagine them wanting to look like a bunch of incompetent idiots and useless buffoons and clowns, which is what the UK government look like. So I don't really believe in it. It's the same with the Twin Towers attack in America. People talk about how that was planned, and that the American administration knew that it was coming. Well, I don't buy that, because if you remember and watch the news footage of the time when George W. Bush was told He was visiting an elementary school at the time, and he spent about 5 minutes sitting in a daze with a book held upside down in his hands, a reader for primary school kids called something like My Little Goat, I think. I don't quote me, I don't remember it well enough, but that's how he was filmed for about 5 minutes after he was told the news. Now, if he'd known about it, he wouldn't have been let himself be filmed that way. He would have been striding from the room, grasping the nettle and taking control and looking good. And you can't make me believe that he would agree to look like a complete tool. It just doesn't make sense. So basically, in short, I don't believe in it. I mean the conspiracy theories, not COVID-19. I believe in that, fortunately, because I think it's real. I mean, I'm all for people having their own points of view, but on the other hand, I think you do have to be a little bit sensible. You do have to apply some logic to the situation. And as for all these people who are against face masks because of civil liberties issues, that's an interesting one. Because to me, it occurred to me anyway, doesn't wearing a face mask give you greater civil liberties in a way? Because in a world where we're all on camera all the time, some of us by choice, a lot of us not by choice, there's closed circuit cameras everywhere, there's surveillance cameras everywhere. Anybody in authority allegedly needs a court order, but they don't bother, I'm sure. They can track your mobile phone if you've got the location thing turned on, so they know where you are. But if you're wearing a face mask, that protects you from being recognised on all the cameras, doesn't it? So isn't that a greater civil liberty in a way? I don't know, it just occurred to me. I don't see why you wouldn't want to wear one. I really don't. But it made me laugh actually quite considerably when I saw some Conservative Party members, the rank and file, the public, actually tearing up their membership cards because they didn't want to wear face masks. And I just thought, yeah, that's pretty typical really, isn't it? Of a Tory. You ask them to do one little thing which will benefit someone else, one little inconvenience in their lives, and they don't want to do it. That's Tories all over for me. But the politics is over, let's get back to the beer. We're going to try some comparison drinking, and I'm going to go for the Cairngorm Black Gold against the Zwetby, or whatever it was called. Yes, it was called that. That wasn't bad. Zwetby. It's probably better than my Spanish anyway. Okay, I'm ready to rank. Cue the caption, then jingle and fanfare or something or other. Yeah. Well, if it was a bigger budgeted show, we could do something like that. But, we ain't got that much of a budget. It's kind of like nothing. Anyway, so let's do it. So, obviously, as I said, it's fairly obvious split between the two ones I rate and the two ones I don't. And they're both quite difficult within those pairs to actually make my mind up, because although the Zwetby from Belgium, I hope I'm saying that right, is kind of weird. I really didn't like. As you noticed, I didn't really like it at all when I first tried it. It's kind of grown on me a fair bit, but it's still not something I particularly like all that much. But it's certainly got a bit to it. I mean, you can't argue that it's distinctive. Whereas the Black Gold from Cairngorm is kind of not got anything at all, really. I mean, it's okay. I'm not complaining, or it's not that I'm not enjoying it. But there's just nothing there. But it's won awards. So it's probably just me, I live in fear of slacking something off on this show and having someone in the brewing industry who's responsible for one of the beers coming back to me in the comments section. I know it's unlikely, but getting back to me and saying, "Oh, how dare you? We put a lot of work into that, and you're just some git who's sitting on his lounge floor on a Friday slagging us off, having made no effort to create beer in your life." And I perfectly understand that. And if that sounds unlikely, I got contacted by the director of a 1975 science fiction film called The Knower about my review of it on my Cult Cinema blog. We actually had an email conversation which stretched over a week or two, which was quite interesting. He's very elderly now and living in the West Indies and not in great health, but he kept an eye out for people actually ever mentioning his movie on the internet, and it was really quite a fascinating little conversation we had about how he almost got Jack Lemmon to play the lead, and how he knew certain screenwriters whose names I knew from being a film buff, one of whom wrote the 1960s Day of the Triffids movie, for example. Yeah, so you can get contacted. It's a small world. You can get contacted over the internet. So I really hesitate to say I don't like something, because I want to be a nice guy, I don't want to upset people, especially if they put a lot of effort into stuff. But having said all that, the Black Gold has finished fourth on the survey this week. I just don't get anything from it, so that's all I'm going to say. And the third place goes to the rather very strange 7% Belgian beer Zvet B. I can understand, or not, well, I can't really understand some of the things people were saying about it, because I wasn't getting those kind of flavours. But it is a very strange beer, there's no doubt about that. And I can't say I particularly like it, but it is distinctive, and it did improve the more I had of it. So, I will give it that. But that brings us on to the two beers that I like the most, and this is where we get a bit crucial. And I'm going to have one last taste. I'm pretty sure how I'm ranking these, but I'm going to have one last go. It's quite tight. It is quite tight, but second place on the evening session goes to the Garden Brewery's Imperial peanut butter, chocolate and stuff stout. I like it, but it's not got the appeal of the Tailgate peanut butter that I had a few weeks ago. I like it, it's good. Certainly there's no question of the strength being a problem. You're not really aware that it's 9.2. It's very good from that respect. But somehow it's not balanced enough. The flavours are too separate. They're not integrated enough for me. Now I've got to say it's really, really good, but it's not quite there. And that puts it in second place. I am a little disappointed, especially because the previous one I've had from them was so good, but it's still of a high standard, and I'd still say, without actually any hesitation at all, although I did appear to hesitate a bit there, but without any hesitation at all, if you see online or in local stores or whatever, one of these cans from the Garden Brewery in Croatia, and they're pretty distinctive. If you see one of these, snap it up, because I've had 3 beers from them now, and they've all been good, and one was great. So I wouldn't have any doubt, any question or hesitation about trying one of these. I'm starting to ramble a bit, aren't I? I think it's the strength. It's stronger than I thought it was. Kind of. Dear. Okay, oh dear. It's going to be a long night. Okay, the winner of this week's session is the Saltaire Triple Choc. It's really nice. There's a lot of chocolate in it. It's a triple choc after all. It's not quite well balanced enough again for me. there's a little too much of the beer flavour, not quite enough of the chocolate, but it is very, very good. Unfortunately, it's not going to go through to the next stage of my survey. I'm beginning to think I dreamt those first Magnificent Seven that have gone through because it's been so long since I found one to join them. But this is very good. And as my first experience with the Saltaire Brewery, I've got to say it's excellent. And I'd say cheers to them for making a very, very nice beer. Definitely. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this week's show. Another one bites the dust. How many shows have I done now? Are we in double figures? I suppose we're in double figures by now. We must be. My God. Yeah, I've been sitting here for 4 months now in this flat since lockdown began, because that was like the end of March. So what is it now? July? Yeah, it's about 4 months. Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, yes, it is. I kept a really good record up to about 100 days, and once I did that and did my 100 days show, I really lost track a bit. Although I think I did quote how many I thought it was earlier. I'm not entirely sure that's true. But anyway, whatever. It doesn't really matter, does it? Let's face it. And what was I talking about? Hang on. So I was how many days? Yeah, I did Saltaire. That was really nice. God, I'm like this normally. It's not nothing to do with beer. Yeah, I don't remember. I've totally lost track of where I was. Genuine Friday night pub experience, that. So I'm just going to wrap it up, because I can get into the wrap up and just do the last thing, and then right at the end I'll remember what I was talking about and go back to it probably. Or probably not, actually. No, probably not. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, congratulations for making it this far through lockdown. I'm proud of myself, because, what the hell, you've got to take what little you can get from this. Yeah, it's been a good session. It's been a nice program. I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe using those silly buttons down there, because apparently that does some good stuff for me, to do with algorithms and stuff. I don't really understand it, but rather concentrate on the beer, to be honest. Anyway, have a good evening, have a good weekend. I hope things are going with you. Stay well. Don't listen to the government about anything, because it's just, they're only interested in filling their own pockets, aren't they? Let's face it. They're not interested in you or me. So, cheers. Enough political content. Can I get flagged for political content on YouTube? Do you suppose I can? Probably will be in a few years' time. Going down the road a bit. Probably this will get taken down, because I was just too negative about politics. Anyway, I'm starting to ramble because the beer's strong and the evening's getting on, and I'm beginning to mellow out. I hope you are as well. Anyway, have a good one. I'll see you later. See you next week. Hopefully, if you've enjoyed it, I'm glad. It's a crumb of comfort to me in these weird and strange days to know that I brought a smile to someone's face somewhere. Right, that'll do. See you later. See you next week. Cheers, everybody. That has to be the most chaotic wrap up I've done. I won't even be able to edit it that much, because it'll just look terrible. Oh well.